The morning had started like any other in the quiet town of Brookidge, Ohio, a sleepy corner of America where nothing ever seemed to go too far off the rails. But that illusion of calm would shatter in less than an hour. Elijah Brandt was 68, his knees sore from decades of manual labor, and his back complaining every time he bent too quickly. He'd parked his rust-colored truck in the rear lot of Brookidge Public Library like he had nearly every weekday for the last 5 years. His canvas work bag bounced against his hip as he made his way toward the building's maintenance entrance. He paused for a second near the lot's edge, kneeling slightly to tighten the lace of his left boot. Then the cruiser came. It cut across the lot fast, tires squealing slightly. Elijah barely had time to straighten up before the siren chirped once, and an authoritative voice barked, "Hand where I can see them." Startled but composed, Elijah raised his hands slowly. Officer Darren Hill, mid-30s, buzzcut and swagger, had already drawn his sidearm, its muzzle leveled right at Elijah's chest. "Don't move," Hill ordered, stepping out. Behind him, Officer Sean Lambert exited more cautiously, his hand resting on the butt of his holstered weapon. Elijah's voice was steady. "What's going on?" "Call came in," Hill replied, eyes scanning Elijah from head to toe. "Suspicious individual behind the library. Matches your description. You carrying anything?" "My ID," Elijah replied calmly, "and a licensed firearm in my jacket pocket. Registered and legal." Lambert stiffened at the word firearm. Hill didn't wait. "Turn around, hands behind your back." Elijah did as told, moving with a stoicism that betrayed years of practice. The cold steel of the cuffs bit into his wrists as Hill yanked the sidearm out of Elijah's coat pocket like it was ticking. "Yep, armed," Hill muttered into his radio. "Uncooperative, erratic behavior, no visible credentials." From across the street, a few people had started to take notice. One woman pulled out her phone and started recording. Elijah said nothing. He didn't plead, didn't argue, didn't even frown. But deep inside, something settled. He had seen this before in different uniforms, on foreign soil, under harsher suns. The ride to Brookidge PD was short. Elijah sat silently in a holding cell that buzzed with fluorescent light. His gray hoodie was damp from the drizzle outside. His hands were raw from the tightness of the cuffs. Lambert was at a nearby desk, entering details into their system. Hill leaned against a filing cabinet, making jokes with dispatch. Says he's a janitor at the library. Carries a gun and a utility knife like he's sweeping hallways in Kabul. "No priors," Lambert said, narrowing his eyes at the monitor. "But that's weird." "What is?" Hill asked. "There's a hold on his file," Lambert said, inching closer to the screen. "It says, active asset do not process." Hill furrowed his brow. "Asset." Then the alert blinked again. "Priority intercept. Federal override in progress." Lambert stared at it, mouth slightly open. Another line appeared. "Stand by for contact. Do not engage." Before they could make sense of it, the station phone rang. Dispatcher Renee Marquez picked up, and within seconds, her complexion drained. "Yes, sir." "Yes." "Understood," she said shakily, then turned to Hill and Lambert. They said stop everything. Don't speak to him. Don't even look at him. Agents are en route. Ita. 7 minutes. Hill blinked. What? Who even is this guy? From the cell, Elijah sat quietly, gaze lowered. He wasn't worried. He was waiting. Exactly 7 minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled into the station lot. No sirens. No escreching. Just precision. 4 federal agents emerged, dressed in sleek suits, moving with the smooth coordination of people used to taking control. No words were wasted. The man leading them had a silver tie and eyes like frost. Agent Callum Voss, veteran field coordinator for the Federal Protective Task Force. He moved past Hill and Lambert like they didn't exist. "Who detained Elijah Brandt?" he asked, voice like ice water. "We did," Hill said, suddenly much less confident. "Got a call about a suspicious man. You ran his ID? Boss cut him off." "Why, yes, sir," Lambert replied. "That was your mistake." Behind them, Agent Nadia Patel was already extracting surveillance footage from the station servers. Agent Micah Sloan was speaking into a secure line. Inside the cell, Elijah finally looked up as Voss opened the door himself. "As said he." "Brant," Voss said, voice lower now. "I'm Agent Voss. You're being extracted. Effective immediately." "About damn time," Elijah said, standing slowly. "I was beginning to think the chain of command had rotted." Voss gave him a small nod. "You've been dark since '08. The trigger pinged only when someone leaked the '89 archive. Elijah's eyes narrowed. "So it's out? It's moving now." "Fast," Voss replied. Elijah sighed, cracked his knuckles, and glanced toward the mirrored glass that masked the observation room. "They didn't know who I was," he said softly. "But they sure thought they did." Back in the main room, Agent Patel handed a thin manila file to Renee Marquez. It was labeled Brant Classified. She flipped it open. The summary was minimal, but enough to rattle anyone. Operative Elijah Brant, embedded 1985-2003 in classified global operations spanning Southeast Asia, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. Clearance, Tier Black. Status, Dormant Reassignment Protocol, triggered 2016. Risk level, critical. He's still active? Marquez asked quietly. He was, Voss said, until your officers nearly compromised his identity. Hill scoffed under his breath. He's just a janitor. He was hiding in plain sight, Voss snapped. That's what deep cover is. He's been marked since the Prague lists leaked last year. Hill swallowed hard. Why'd he keep the gun? Marquez asked. Elijah, standing nearby and hearing everything, answered her himself. Because there are men alive who don't forget, and not all of them are friendly. Her voice softened. Was it true? Thailand, the hostage boy. Elijah looked away, then nodded once. We were 5 going in. I carried him 12 miles on foot after the others were hit. Wrapped him in linen. His ribs were broken. I remember his eyes, not his name. That part never stuck. What stuck was the silence. Voss motioned to the agents. We've secured a transport-safe location in West Virginia. But this isn't staying quiet. No, Elijah said. If that file's out there, they'll come. And they won't ask questions this time, Voss agreed. 2 weeks later, the Brookidge PD was a different place. Officer Hill had been placed under internal review for procedural misconduct and excessive escalation. Lambert had been quietly reassigned. Marquez had been offered a liaison post with Homeland Security, a reward, in part, for her restraint and instincts. She never saw Elijah Brant again. But 3 months later, a letter appeared in her mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just a plain envelope with her name. Inside was a handwritten note. Marquez, some folks think wars end when the shooting stops. They're wrong. It just gets quieter. You didn't need a file to know something was off. You listened. That's rare. Stay rare. E.B. She pinned it to the inside of her locker. Said nothing about it, but something about her shifted. Not lighter, just sharper. Far away, in a tucked-away rehab center in the Appalachian woods, Elijah Brant sat in a circle of veterans, most half his age. They spoke about ambushes, insomnia, survivor's guilt. One young Marine looked up, tears brimming, and asked, "Do you ever stop reliving it?" Elijah didn't smile. He looked toward the window and said, "You don't forget. You just learn how to carry it without dropping everything else." Later, as the group dispersed, a volunteer approached. "This came for you," she said, handing him a sealed file. Inside, there was a single photographed grainy and old-a-grown man standing in front of a UN humanitarian office in Cambodia, holding a sign, "You gave me a chance. I used it. No signature. No need." Elijah closed the file, sat back, and closed his eyes. No medals. No applause. Just truth, quiet and heavy. Because some men don't need to raise their voice. They simply wait for the world to listen. And some secrets were always meant to be kept until the right moment.